Hello and welcome to John and James Live. My name is John Hastings and I am with the main man, Mr. James CeeLo. How are you today, James?
I'm good. How you doing, mate?
Not bad. I wasn't as excitable that time. I tried to do it in a more relaxed, authentic tone. Did you notice?
Stoic, almost, wasn't it?
Stoic, depressive. Today, James, we're going to be talking about shame, because you're a very shameful guy, aren't you?
It's a heavy subject, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, we're thinking, what should we talk about? What's the base of society? They say on Hawkins' Levels of Consciousness, decent book actually on there. Shame is the lowest vibrational state, and which kind of means that you move up the levels, don't you, on this scale? So you're like shame, guilt, moves up to fear, desire, and then you break through at courage, and then you move up the scale, and it's more of a, I don't know how scientific this one is, actually. They reckon there is some science behind it. But shame is something that...
Just for clarity, you know, this is our anecdotal...
No, this is professional advice, James.
It's not, don't take this as professional advice. We are not qualified in any way, shape or form to offer any sort of
shame advice,
therapy, or this is literally just us spitballing experiences that we've had. So this is just two blokes having a chat about how shame has impacted our lives and perception of shame in the world generally, and relationships that we have and people that we've interacted with, and how damaging it can be. So yeah, our very much personal experiences of it, and in no way, shape or form is this intended to be anything along the lines of therapy or any kind of
James, this is very professional of you, James. You've
just putting in the caveats before we start.
Yeah, this is like online personal training stuff, isn't it? Where you've got to put the disclaimer, like
there's a full disclaimer. Yeah,
if you do, if something goes wrong,
so we're just chatting shit, shooting the breeze. Yeah,
there's no liability this end. This is just a revealing of truth, voices of reason, I would say.
Yeah.
So let's start off
terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Send us an email and we'll send them to you.
So like we said, levels of consciousness, shame is at the bottom. There's a lot of shame in society. People hold secrets, don't they? Shameful secrets, which sort of infiltrate their life, I think, a lot of the time. People think it's strange, but over the time, we've both been personal trainers for a long time, haven't we? 20 years. We don't do that. I don't do it anymore. I don't think you're doing it sparingly at the moment, aren't you? But in that time, you get to meet a lot of people, a lot of stories. And normally anything to do with people's body is less to do with their eating habits. Well, it is to do with their eating habits, but it's more like some lifetime trauma. One of the first questions I normally ask, which sounds crazy, which might not be a good way to do it, but it seems to work because I sort of relate it to myself, is have you been sexually abused as a child? And it sounds like a hit rate, but my hit rate is super high. I reckon it's at least half to 3/4 that actually reveal some hidden truth about their childhood.
Okay, and just to clarify, at what point does that question get asked? Because if you're talking about right at the beginning, you're going to get a mixed reaction to that, aren't you? That's pretty controversial. I mean, I've never asked that question to a client. So when would you pose that question?
To be honest, it's contextual. It's not going to be the first time I meet them.
No,
definitely not. Sometimes with people, if we're on the subject of talking about like bigger picture stuff or sort of trauma-based stuff or psychology-based stuff, what I will do is probably reveal a story about myself in some shape or form, and then leave the door open to anybody who has had any experiences similar to that. So I would do it in a roundabout way, but the amount of times people have come to me and said, "John, something happened to me," and I'll just say, "Yeah, I'm not surprised." And then the shame's lifted then, and it's like an open conversation. But the hit rate is so high with it, James.
I mean, just listening to what you were saying right at the beginning, I think maybe shame needs to be given a bit of a makeover, doesn't it? The definition of shame and the term shame and what it represents, because the foundations of it, when you think of a shameful thing and something that might be shameful to me might not seem that shameful at all to somebody else. And that shame emanates from something that was more than likely done to you that you had no control over. And, it then becomes mixed up with things that you do as an adult that you're not proud of necessarily. So that the term is challenging. It's tricky, isn't it? It's like, well, shame is something to be ashamed of, but it's about fallibility and the fact that none of us are perfect. But the basis of it comes from, more often than not, it was something that happened to us that we had no agency over.
Yeah.
But
it must be some ingrained. It must be like an ingrained survival mechanism, shame, mustn't it? You don't want to be ousted by the group.
The tribe,
I guess it's something bad happens to you and you don't want to rock the boat or destabilize your positioning within a group. I guess that's maybe where the shame, because shame, I guess, has value. There's a flip side to shame, isn't it? Because it stops you from doing stuff that is potentially shameful, which maybe would be shameful to a group, which is not potentially that good for the group. So I guess there is a purpose to it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
But I keep coming back to the fact that I think shame is something that needs a rebrand, because it's a term that's thrown around for so many different things. But when you look at shame in its origins, it represents something very different.
What's the definition of shame, James?
Look it up, mate. Look it up. But the end result is, and the way that it manifests itself, is behavior, and that sort of incongruity between how you feel inside and what you're portraying on the outside. And I think once that, again, the shame that emanates from whatever happened during your childhood, until that is exercised, then that will continue to manifest itself in those behaviors. That until you come to terms with the fact that that thing that happened wasn't your fault and was done to you by another party, whoever that may have been, and that you're an innocent in all of it, that's when the healing starts, that you can then address the issues that are happening as a result of whatever that was that occurred in childhood. So again, it's all anecdotal stuff that you've been through, stuff that I've been through, and that's
so to be clear, we've both got, we don't have to go into the details, but we've both got history in both of our families
abuse.
of childhood sexual abuse.
Yeah.
No, at varying degrees. And the amount of people I know that I've spoken to that have had similar in their family is just ridiculously high.
In whatever shape or form. And
It's just like, oh my God, it's you as well. You know, it's the one that you think, oh yeah, I had a great family, and then you delve deeper and then all of a sudden there's something.
Yeah.
It's quite crazy. It says here, James, psychology defines shame as a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior, or by the belief that one's whole self is defective. Is that what you thought it was?
I don't know that really describes it. I think that's
the psychological definition.
It seems like a very surface term to use, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm not good enough, self-condemnation, fear of being exposed, fear of rejection or abandonment, a collapse of self-worth, avoidance, hiding, withdrawal.
Yeah.
Would you say you're ashamed? I don't know if it's an ego thing, but I personally don't feel like I'm a massively shameful person, or I carry a lot of shame. I don't know if it's because I've used like radical acceptance or radical openness. I'm pretty much happy to discuss any subject, no matter, and it doesn't feel painful to me. It feels, and the people psychologists could say, oh, it's, you know, you're burying your emotions and this is you not, you know, dealing with this is your way of dealing with a problem. But I've sort of been through those troughs and coming to the acceptance, and then had so many other people that I've spoke to go through it that I don't know, I just accept it for what it is, and I don't even see it as in some ways good or bad. But I guess that's just because of my own, you know, psychological makeup and my own experiences maybe wasn't as bad as somebody else. Do you feel like you carry shame been something for you that you carry?
Huge amounts of shame I carried around with me. And as I said, it wasn't until I'd done the work and done the self-forgiveness bit that I could then let that go. But it's still, the remnants of it are still there. You know, I don't know that it ever completely goes away. You've always got the echoes of that hang around. But I think it was until the point in which I was able to say, you know what, it wasn't my fault. And behaviors, I think there's an acceptance of behaviors that came out of that, and an acknowledgement that, you know, I didn't behave in the way in which I wanted to. And
Martin says thanks for this, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Martin. But I think until the point you acknowledge the reasons why you behave the way you behave, and like going back to what you were saying, it's if you don't ever think that has affected you, or you think that, you know, that isn't something that you carry with you as in shame, then that, you know, no one can comment on that in respect of that's your experience. And possibly you have in some way, shape or form managed to have some level of acknowledgement around the fact that what happened to you in childhood wasn't your fault. It was, you're a victim of circumstance. There are external forces, and maybe, you know, you have come to terms with that. Only you know. So, but I think personally for me, it was very much along the lines of like, you've suffered enough, and the burden that you carry with you every day that has resulted in these behaviors that you're not proud of. Once you can let that go, or certainly once I could let that go, then behavior started changing dramatically. So you kind of appear to get into this sort of cycle of behaviors and this spiral of this, I guess it's the sabotage, the self-sabotage really, and relationships suffer as a result. And all of it is shame-based. But I would really like to redefine that the shame that comes from childhood, because it isn't shame, you know, and if it's, you cannot feel shameful for something that happened to you as a child.
Yeah.
And the shame, then I guess we need a term for it to make sense of that emotion. But the shame that is resultant from childhood is very different as an adult as it was as a child. You know, it's that kind of calcification of not having exercised, as I said, or dealt with those things that had happened during childhood that have then become part of your, you know, that you would perceive as part of your character as an adult.
Yeah, it says there's so much confusing emotions around it when things happen as a childhood, because you don't really sometimes know what's wrong or right, and
No.
you might think, oh, did I bring it on myself? Did I actually like it? Did I, you know, what does that mean about me? What is this thing? You don't
did I
realize.
instigate it, encourage it? All those
Yeah.
kind of things go through your head, and that is very, very hard to deal with.
Yeah. So I think there's so much to that, isn't there? Then all of the offshoots of that, which then people then get into addictions, don't they? They try to find something to fill the void, which makes them, like Gabor Mate would say, makes you feel better short term, but has long term negative consequences. So it
It's
could
pain
be,
relief, isn't it?
yeah, it could be into work, could be into, you know, sex, could be anything, drugs, gambling. There's normally some type of trauma that you're trying to feel that makes you feel better, doesn't it, in the short term, and you just get hooked on that.
Yeah.
And then you've got, you know, it doesn't need to be childhood abuse, but it could be any childhood dynamics that affects you and your personal reality and your personality. Then all of a sudden you're like, we can move on to things like people who have affairs in relationships. There's a lot of people that feel a lot of shame around, you know, cheating or being the one who is on the other side of that. Have you had any experiences of those, James?
Yeah. I mean, we all know, you know, people who've been in that situation, and again, it's feeling like you aren't enough and not worthy of somebody else's love, and the self-sabotage of kind of pushing that away. And it's interesting, the partner, you know, whatever sex that is, could be attracted by your lost soul, the vulnerability,
Of course,
or wanting to fix you, which you hear time and time again. It's, you know, it's quite an attractive, bizarrely, it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it, to have those kind of qualities, but can be attractive to a partner because they are then depending on that individual as well, thinking that they can save you, fix you. And that's another, you know, element and aspect of that kind of people pleasing and, you know, the savior complex, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, you know, those relationships are hugely challenging for an individual who has suffered that. And more than likely the partner has also suffered. And therefore you're kind of, you know, jarring against each other, sort of batting up against each other, butting up against each other in respect of each other's trauma. And you're sort of playing this kind of dance of going around each other, distributing elements of the trauma to each other, and then trying to sort of deal with that, and then taking it on board because that's your sort of, you know, love language as a result of whatever, you know, the people pleasing, the of acts of service, etc. And you just go
there's
around.
so
in
much
this
shame, isn't there, around relationships?
dance.
There's so many angles. It might be a person who secretly watches porn and their partner doesn't know, or it might be like a body shame. I know guys who, you know, their wives, you know, didn't feel comfortable naked at all, or the shame that you don't feel happy in a relationship, and then all of a sudden you start having an affair. That's shameful. Or you're the other person on the opposite end, and let's say your wife leaves you for another man, and that man's maybe, you know, subjectively more successful than you, like monetary wise, and that is could be just there's so many shame inducing situations, isn't there, through life where your ego pretty much gets forced to be dissolved or smashed. So much comparison, secrecy, maybe that lack of truth. But I don't know, maybe, James, is it your, we don't really know what ego is, to be honest. We can have the Freudian definitions of ego, but if you dissolve your ego, does that sort of all go away? Do you think that shame-based feeling? Are you just like, say I get cheated on, you could say, I completely accept it. This is a co-creative relationship, a situation. This other person was basically just trying to feel good, their best in their own reality.
Yeah.
I'm co-creating this reality. They don't feel good. They've gone somewhere else to feel good. And then there's a level of acceptance and say, that's absolutely fine. That's the way it was meant to be. I get it. You couldn't tell me. You didn't have the strength to tell me. And then you sort of just let that shame go. And then somebody asks you at a dinner party and you say, yeah, this happened to me. This is the part of life. And I think you can have a lightness about it, but that's not that common. Would you say, James?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was just thinking how many conversations I've had, and I'm sure you've had them as well, with guys like, I never saw it coming. I didn't know there was a problem. And just all of a sudden, it's like they're gone. And you hear it time and time again. And, and in your head, you maybe think, well, they were in denial, they didn't see, or the ego, whatever your term of what ego. And I think, again, ego has been misinterpreted and misdefined as well, in terms of, ego being, well, you're full of yourself and self-importance and peacocking, etc., etc., and I'm great, and blah 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 blah. Not to be kind of misconstrued or confused with, again, the term of narcissism, and in an overt and an introvert. But because narcissism isn't, again, about just thinking you're absolutely great, loving yourself, etc., etc. The definitions do get confused. So, very much along those sort of lines of that awareness piece of not knowing or not seeing that there was a problem, or just being blinded to the fact that these things are going on around you, but you're so inside your own head in the darkness and the demons that it isn't apparent to you. So going back to dissolving the ego, I mean, that you hear a lot about that dissolution of the ego. But again, anecdotally, for me, it was more the acceptance of what had happened to me wasn't my fault. And, the weight of that you carry through to adulthood, of being able to release that, it's so incredibly liberating. And you become lighter as a result, that you're then able to see what's going on around you. And you have the capacity to be what you want to be, not even what you need to be, but what you would like to be for the person you're in a relationship with, be that with friends or, your partner, for your children, whatever, that you just suddenly have this bandwidth to be able to go, I can step back from that now. I'm not always in this reactive state that I can't be what I need to be or what I want to be. And all of a sudden, that load is being lifted, and you've got this insight.
Yeah, it changes, isn't it? Because that's different from the childhood stuff, isn't it, James? Because you're saying there about saying it's not your fault when you're a child, that sort of, lifting that personal responsibility. Whereas maybe shame-induced stuff around having affairs, which is obviously a different kettle of fish to childhood abuse, I think there's some weight in holding personal responsibility. For me anyway, if somebody has an affair, not always, blaming somebody else and saying, look, they've done me bad, they've done this, actually saying, what did I do in that situation to co-create this environment that person's done it? They might be, obviously, they might be doing something bad, but you can always, it seems always quite empowering in certain contexts to take personal responsibility and say, look, I co-created this, I chose to be in that relationship with that person. They've done this. I accept the situation, and then you move forward from there.
Well, in terms of responsibility, and again, depending on where you are, in terms of your mindset, where you are on that timeline, the responsibility lies in figuring out why you act the way you do. Now, again, as I say that those kind of thoughts and ideas sometimes just, when you're in that washing machine of life and emotions, that those sort of things, you just, from the next disaster to the next disaster to the next disaster, one emotional upheaval to the next, it's like, you're in the ring, you're getting punched, you're trying to avoid getting punched, and you're just surviving. When you're in that situation, to go and say, well, you've got to take responsibility and sort yourself out, is not entirely helpful. But if a series of events can occur that enable you to at least be able to take a step back and a bit of a breather and go, well, okay, why does this keep happening? And then taking the time to go figure that out, get some help in some respect, to then begin that process of understanding why. It's like, oh shit, okay. And that acknowledgement of going, these things have happened, and it's not to absolve you of the responsibility of your behaviors and actions as an adult. If you're hurting somebody, if you're leaving littering your wake with broken relationships, then, but first and foremost, you have a responsibility to yourself. And then when you take that on, you can then be what you would like to be.
Yeah.
For other people. But
there's a healthy sweet spot. There's a definite sweet spot with personal responsibility. You don't want to be the person who just, it's okay to be a victim of things. Some things do happen to you. They're completely out of your control, but then it's sort of how you react to them, take personal responsibility. There's context and time, and there's so many variants on that. Some people can go one extreme to the other, where they never take responsibility, or they literally take responsibility for everything, which is not that probably great either.
No.
So yeah, the relationships can be a real mirror for shame. It can really expose any shame that you do have. I guess that would lead on. So we've gone from sort of child abuse to affairs to probably body shame was a big one. As personal trainers, especially we trained a lot of women, didn't we, James? I guess
majority,
but we did. It is quite big for men as well nowadays.
Yeah,
probably like the size of your penis would be one of the big ones, I guess. When you're a kid, if you're comparing yourself to certain other people, you feel inadequate. That would probably be the first point of call, especially if you're exposed to any pornography when you're a kid, which I reckon it's got to be 50% of kids must be.
Yeah.
Which is shocking, but it's true. Then all of a sudden,
you're even more so now. I mean,
you're comparing yourself to
you're 10 years younger than I am, but like access to it was, I mean, we were talking top shelf stuff.
Yeah. But you're comparing yourself to people who are like athletes in that game, who are like freaks of nature.
Yeah.
And you're maybe normalizing.
I still do it. I still do it to an extent, even the age that I am. It's interesting because it's kind of mixed up in that sense of self, of taking care of yourself, but also acknowledging the fact that this is deeper in respect of, how you value yourself, and the fact that, if people say, oh, you look like you work out, or makes you feel good,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's how your clothes fit, it's how you comport yourself. It's, again, there's a level of, albeit transitory, kind of confidence that comes out of having worked out and looked after your body. And it's a very personal thing for individuals as to the reason why. So,
but there's a lot of body shame, isn't there? Like I said, guys, how well endowed you are. There might be some shame if you're comparing yourself to other people and you're not, you don't feel you're as big as somebody else. Women have it constantly. I guess I know, well, a lot of women, breast size was a problem, whether they're too big, the shape, or some people that would just never show their breasts because they felt they was too small. Obviously, we know that boob jobs and things are a big business. Nose jobs, people have the shame of their face, structure of their face, their hair. You've said about losing your hair as a young man. There's a lot of shame around people. People don't realize for guys how big it is in losing your hair, which is, creates a lot of shame, makes you feel old, makes you feel maybe you're at risk of not attracting a mate. There's all different shame levels, isn't there, when it comes to the physical body? Then that's been amplified by a society that is very much beauty conscious. And that can be a big thing. Biljana, how are you? Have I pronounced that right? A very important topic.
Biljana.
It's a Biljana. I think I've said that right. A very important topic. I try to do my job honestly to live my principles. The state job in whose system I work did not make sure that I was not poor. Is that my shame or the shame of the country I live in? Oh, I think that's referring to a cultural shame, which I would be very familiar about in terms of, family members that come from other countries in the Middle East. There is a lot of cultural shame in those countries, probably more than here. It's like if there's a suicide in a family, they won't put it down as a suicide because there's shame. There's a lot of shame around that suicide. They will put it down as an accidental death. Or if something happens in the family, oh my word, it is for that to get out and be known by the village is basically game over for them. They cannot handle it.
And even going back one generation to pregnancy. I mean, my family and my wife's family have come from South Wales. And, a pregnancy out of wedlock or, a young girl getting pregnant, they were forced to wear coats in summer to prevent them from being seen as pregnant. But, what more of an indicator that something's not right if you've got a young girl wearing a coat in the middle of summer? But they would be kept inside. They would be kept indoors so that, the rest of the town or the village or whoever didn't get to know that girl was pregnant. I mean, just astonishing. Had to wear clothing that hid the bump for as long as they possibly could. And then the child was born and it was either, adopted or it's just astonishing. And literally within a generation that the taboo was such that the shame, again, that was perceived to be on the family as a result of that. I can't imagine.
That's a good example. That was a huge one, wasn't it? Up until women could control their cycle with and sexualness with the pill. I guess that was a massive problem even, if you fell pregnant.
Yeah, but even it's a cultural, appropriation of what was deemed to be shameful and decent or indecent.
Yeah. But what is the fear, James? Imagine so if you're in the village and you're the person and you watch somebody and that's their daughter, they've got pregnant. Is it the fear of that they're going to be judged, ostracized? What if you're the person doing the judging? Are you thinking, oh, I can't trust those? Is it a trust thing? Is that what it is? Is this like they're doing something that's not considered good? I can't trust these people. So is it that friction between trust, judgment, doing something out of the norm? That's
It's
what we
possibly
said.
all those things, but again, it comes back to the tribal element, doesn't it? That everybody wants to be,
thing, yeah.
Conform to the general consensus. And if the general consensus is that that's a shameful act, that, it's a show of poor class or, a wanton individual who is seen to be, have loose morals, for example.
Yeah.
Then that is going to be something that everybody subscribes to feel part of that kind of community. If that is the general consensus, then to belong within that community, to be accepted and for people to talk to you. And so you can understand it. It doesn't make it right, but you can understand why those attitudes proliferate through a community, because, nobody wants to feel outside and shunned.
Yeah.
And, the minorities that find themselves in those situations are then having to behave in that way, which is, when you look at it now from our sort of modern sensibility, you think that's just horrendous. But
there's got to be some acceptance, isn't there, that this does happen. But then you see the flip side is having no shame and loose morals is equally, as questionable. Let's say like a Russell Brand in his heyday, maybe just being loose with his tongue, loose with his body. He probably looks back now, but at the time, it seems like it's probably rooted in deep shame and insecurity.
Yeah.
But it's shown up as having no shame. It's like a sort of a weird response to it.
And that's not to, none of this is to sort of say the victims of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, anything like that, that we're somehow kind of absolving the perpetrators, because clearly that's not the case. And again, I went through this sort of process weirdly before, I think, the self-forgiveness piece of overly understanding the reasons why my stepfather sexually abused me, and having extreme coming to terms with that, he had a terrible childhood and he was orphaned at a very early age and he was physically abused and mentally abused, etc., etc. But that wasn't about me and what had happened to me. That was very much about him and absolving him of any blame or responsibility.
Sort of rationalizing it.
And that then manifests itself in terms of the people pleasing and the sort of, not feeling worthy and less than. And I think it was until that kind of point in which, as I said, you kind of acknowledge that it wasn't your fault and it wasn't right. It shouldn't have happened to me. And I think it was a series of people saying, James, I'm really sorry that happened to you, which really kind of hit home. And it was like, that acknowledgement that these are sort of complete strangers that are saying that, but it was just it wasn't taking on the responsibility or wearing it like a badge of kind of honor almost, that it was just the release, the letting go of that, that responsibility. But your responsibility is how you go forward in the relationships you have with other people.
Yeah.
To ensure that other people aren't suffering, that the damage that was done doesn't then get perpetuated forward to other people that you love. Dare I say it, love, and the way in which that's then impacted. So it is your responsibility to ensure that you aren't harming other people as a result of your trauma.
And when people don't know the context of your situation and they just judge you on superficial behaviors, then, you know, you can't blame them for just judging you. But that's the thing of when you keep things a secret and they're like, oh,
yeah, you can only go on what's
why is John
presented.
just gambling all the time? And there's no context of the reasons.
And you're belligerent
why.
and you're doing it just to hurt people, and that, you know, clearly
bad
you
person.
don't care.
Exactly.
And look,
there's always context, isn't there? It's not excusing people, but there's always context towards it. Because how long was it before I asked you about your situation? It was super quick, wasn't it?
I think it's probably the first conversation.
I'm like the abuse whisperer. I can just see it.
There was no foreplay, mate, on that.
No,
it was straight in.
It was fast. I think it was on maybe the first day, I reckon. It was just and I think that openness allows, you've got to judge the context of the person and the situation. But sometimes when you are open, it just allows other people to be open. And maybe they would
100%.
call it being vulnerable.
But again, the caveat of that is being in the headspace or the right. I just happen to have been in the right place to be able to receive that. You know, I think maybe a year beforehand, it may have gone differently, or I may have still been in that sort of space of, you know, having that kind of the absolution to the perpetrator, as opposed to, you know, where do I come into the grand scheme of things?
Yeah.
And again, you know, it's being able to receive that, having the bandwidth to be able to say, you know what, I can be open, honest about it without talking about it in very sanitized ways. You know, I was talking about it without the emotion, and it was just almost a throwaway, become a throwaway thing that I'd been abused, without actually acknowledging the gravity of it.
Yeah, you've definitely go through a bit of a pathway in that, and all emotions are acceptable when you're going through that pathway, isn't it, James? I'd say on that one. In terms of other things in society, I would say money, big shame-inducing topic. So a lot of, you know, even if you're quite wealthy, I guess I know children of wealthy people, a lot of shame if they're not as successful as maybe their fathers. That's quite a common one. I guess a lot of gang violence and things like that. Respect is one of the main words on the streets, and that respect is coming from, you know, feeling a lack of value. So there's a lot of shame of being poor, and that's probably why, you know, people get a bit of money, they're wearing like gold chains and trying to show off their wealth to feel adequate, which is probably like a shame response, isn't it, to wear brand new clothes, to act a certain way, to have flashy cars. Even a flashy car, I would say, is like, in a lot of ways, it's a bit of a shame signal. Do you reckon, James?
Yeah, it's interesting. I will just say about the sense of powerlessness as well when you're talking about gang culture, and, you know, obviously, again, it's tribal, but that sense of not having power, which then induces fear, and then the fear then can manifest itself in violence. And you know, the feeling of being found out or discovered for, you know, the incongruity between how you feel inside as to how whatever you're projecting externally. I think if that gap has been closed, that how you feel inside is how you're portraying outside, then life just seems a lot easier, smoother, happier. All the time that you've got these two sort of jarring, warring factions going on inside, it'll manifest itself in challenging ways. But money, again, it comes down to your relationship with money, your parents' relationship with money. If you came from a poor background, if you were always struggling, there was always, you know, arguments or upset around money and what money represented, that'll have an impact. And the flip side of that is if money was always abundant, and then you are in a situation where you don't have money, as you said, then that can be challenging as well.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I think
it's
inequality
reflecting
as
on
well,
that, what your
James. If
relationship with money
everybody's
is.
in the same boat, things don't seem that bad. When you have mass inequality in a society, I think it induces a lot of shame because you've got house and estates on top of multi-million pound houses. Whole of social media is optimized for showing the pinnacle, the best, the most good looking, the richest, the funniest. And then all of a sudden you're in this comparison game, and it can be shame inducing. You know, my business is not that good. I've failed a million times. I'm this age and I still haven't made it. Am I stupid? This 16-year-old's created a $1 billion company and I've been trying for 25 years.
We're still struggling.
And I can't tie up my shoelaces. You just, it's, you know, there's so many scenarios that can be shame inducing, or you feel like you could have
it's that comparison thing
better.
again, isn't it? We're talking about, you know, from the fundamentals of penis size to body shape to height to all of those sort of things. You can, you know, those can be crippling in respect of self-esteem. But, you know, with money, again, it comes down to self-worth, doesn't it? It's like, well, you know, do I feel that I deserve to have a comfortable life? You know, we're not talking about accumulating millions and millions or billions of pounds necessarily, but it's just that sense of whether you feel you are deserving of that kind of lifestyle. And if you don't, then fundamentally, you'll be more inclined to keep yourself in a state of crisis and scarcity. Whereas, you know, if that sense of self is now actually, you know what, I am worth this, then it manifests itself in a way in which you can then start to move towards that. And not constantly keep yourself. And again, that self-sabotage of keeping yourself down all the time and not asking for what you deserve or what you're worth.
But that doesn't escape just because you make money. Because if you make £1 million and then you start surrounding yourself in circles that make 10 million, you're going to feel inadequate.
The horse before the cart, isn't it?
Yeah, you're going to feel
inadequate. Before the cart.
It just depends
those
what room
things need to happen really before. Yeah.
And a lot of
the addiction again.
Some of these cases, these people are driven by their shame, and it causes, you know, the cause and effect is objective success in the monetary world. So shame can be a massive driver if you don't want to be poor, you don't want to be seen, and that sometimes can never end, no matter how much you acquire. But it's definitely an underlying element of society, the comparison game, the money game. Money is the signal, isn't it, of your success in modern society.
It's hardwired. It's hardwired, isn't it, from childhood?
Yeah, it's a signal of basically assuming how smart you are, how diligent you are. There's so much to it. So I can see how that can take off. What else is there, James, on the shame side? What else did we have on here? Let's have a look. Covered a few bases on there at the moment. Let's have a look.
That was the majority, wasn't
it? So we have addiction, debt shame, sexuality shame. I guess there's a lot of stuff around sexuality. You didn't cover that. If people, you know, who have come out as gay potentially later on in life, but there's a lot of shame around their feelings. A cultural thing. Is it a choice? Is there something wrong with me? Am I bi? What's going on? You know, am I defective? There's a lot of feelings around people potentially who are not straight. I reckon there's a lot of shame around that. There's a shame around parenting shame. Big one. People who don't feel they're doing a good job constantly in looking after their kids. They feel like they're letting their kids down, they're letting themselves down. It's a perpetual cycle of feeling like you're not a good parent and you're letting everyone down. There's shame around that. What do you think about that, James? That situation?
Yeah, well, we did an entire episode, didn't we, on parenting? So I think we went into that in quite a bit of detail, but it's the sort of hereditary trauma that gets passed from generation to generation, and the way in which it manifests itself. And you can just see how over time, I mean, I've had conversations with many people that have gone, you know, talking about their parents and the relationship they have with their parents. And, you know, and I think until, again, you start to unravel and unwrap that you start to understand your relationship with them and why they are the way they are. And you suddenly go, shit, yeah, they've always been that way. And actually, as they've gotten older, it's just become exacerbated. And then why does that trigger me so much? You know, when I go and see them or they say that, why is that so triggering? Why does that make me feel less than or inadequate? And why do I feel that at 52 years old still? I'm not a child anymore. So, you know, why am I getting feelings like when I was a child as an adult? And that, again, brings sort of shame with it. It's like, Jesus, I'm a fully grown man here, and I'm feeling like a 3-year-old.
100%.
So, you know, it's that in itself is shame inducing. And that can cause anger and resentment and high emotion to go, you know, I need to grow up here. I'm a 52-year-old man, and yet I'm still being talked to and treated like I'm a child. But then when you relate that back, and I think about my relationship with my children, and you remember them as little, you know, you remember them as small, and you want to keep them small, and you want to, you know, give them hugs and kisses, and, you know, because they were cute and lovely and adoring and all those kind of elements. And now they are all grown up. And like, I then start to think about how I interact with them. Do I interact with them like they're adults? Or do I still look at them through the lens of a father who sees them as, you know, 9 or 10?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of introspection that's, I'd say, needed, but it comes periodically. There's these sort of fits and starts of it where you start to think about those kind of things and how they perceive you as a father, but certainly how you perceive them as your child, and acknowledging that they are actually now adults. And
there's a lot of shame around that. Yeah.
Well, the default is to protect them, isn't it? But through protecting them, are you
smothering them,
taking away agency and smothering them? You're not allowing them to grow and to make their mistakes and to feel like they've got it, you know, that they can handle it. So it's a fine old balance, mate, isn't it? I don't know. What do you think?
It's a tricky one. No, I'm the same now. You know, having older children, I said at the beginning of this conversation, I'm not somebody who holds a lot of shame. I reckon that's a bit of a self-deceptive statement, I would say, James. It depends which context we're talking about. If it's about sort of personal things and, you know, things to do with family and any subject, that's absolutely fine. But if I did a thought experiment and you put me in certain scenarios, I would feel a lot of shame. A lot of shame. If you put I think I've got shame around, you know, believing I was going to be this multi-millionaire business person and not cracking that, and then age has caught up, and then you're past 40, the shame has started to creep.
Okay.
And then you've got shame around not being able to, you know, give as much as you would want to monetary wise to children. Shame. And then all of a sudden you have people that, you know, that you feel in your ego state that you're more, how I would say, you've got more all-round potential than them, or you might feel like you're smarter than them in certain ways, and they're doing like way better objectively in a monetary sense, and they're able to do the things you would like to do with your kids, but you can't because you haven't cracked it. I would say there's a lot of shame for me in certain circles. I would say I could play the comparison game and I feel shameful about it, to be honest. So I would say that's a big thing to
admit, mate. That's a big thing to admit. And what I hear from you, again, quite regularly when we talk, is it's embarrassing.
Yeah, I would feel it's embarrassing. Yeah. I would like to.
In response to, what your situation is, you would say it was embarrassing, or,
Yeah. Because you want to be the one who can, give your kids a massive deposit for a house and things like that.
Yeah.
You want to help them, and you want to. And then if somebody else that can do it, and they maybe, you might seem like they've had the same opportunity as you. There's no other reason that you couldn't have done it, but you haven't. Then all of a sudden, with age, I think with age, the doubt and the shame can start to creep up, because when you're young, you don't really think about it. You think you've got time, and you think, this time next year, Rodney, I'll be a millionaire. You've got this wild optimism, and then you think, oh, Jesus, I've had a few failures in a row here, and is it me? This is not going well.
So did you have an idea or a sense of like where you would be by a certain age? So you get these kind of, waypoints in life. You've got your kind of 30s, 40s, obviously 50s. So in terms of the decades, did you have a perception or an idea or a concept of where you would be at those particular waypoints? Or is that not something that's really figured?
I probably had like a innate delusion in a weird way. It's like when I became a professional football player, I thought this is just the stepping stone for me to be Premier League.
Yeah.
This is just a stepping stone for me to be to the top. And then not even getting in a team, in a League Two team, it's like, okay, you woke up to the delusion of where you're at under those circumstances.
Yeah.
And then in business, I always thought, I read the books, I've done this, and then you sort of learn about your own character traits, and sometimes you don't need to be the smartest, but you find a little pocket and you can be very successful. And then I just always thought in my head, I'm just going to fall into something and I'm going to be super successful.
Yeah.
And I'm learning as you get older, that's not necessarily how things will play out.
Yeah.
And I've seen people be very successful around me, which is, it can be difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? So talking about like your football career and how some players make it into the Premier League and how some don't, you think of, it's a huge percentage, isn't it? Like, what is it? 1% of kids.
I think it's like 0.1% of kids make it through the academies to get into a pro game. So I didn't even go to an academy. So it was probably even a lesser percentage of me becoming a professional football player.
So that calls into question then the ones that do, in terms of percentage of innate ability, whether you believe in that or you don't, in terms of genetics, in terms of, muscle density, to height, to athleticism, to joint, all of those factors that you can take into account, as opposed to the level of, dare I say it, trauma and the need to prove or to run away from the demons that enables you to achieve at that high level, because these individuals have to go over and above seemingly what other people would be prepared to do. But again, that's a throwaway kind of comment in respect of like the drive. What is the drive? What is the motivation? You know, the need to do this. You cannot. And talking to high performing sports people would say, you know, I got given a football for Christmas when I was like 3, and I go out and play keepy uppy and kick it against the wall, and I do that from the time I got up in the morning till I went to bed. So there's those kind of anecdotal stories. But the individuals that can perform consistently and will practice, and the ones that have that, again, like I said, the innate ability, but coupled with that determination to practice, that they have the demons there.
Yeah.
That
I think a lot of sports people come from pretty much poverty, don't they? So it's more of a poverty. A lot of elite athletes have come from that type of background, but then you mix in the context, a bit of luck, the right people, the right environment around them. There's so much, so many things that go into that. We've got Daniel here.
Hey, Dan.
Dan. Everyone has to let go and not hold on to shame. You cannot develop yourself or strive to improve yourself to benefit others if you are weighed down by shame or regret. It's a good point, Dan. I would wonder if, Dan, is it something that you need to accept in yourself, or is that something that you need to share? Do you need to share your shame externally? Is it important for people around you to know, that shame that you feel? Because I think, to say, for me, sometimes I think, okay, I'm shameful about maybe not being as successful as I want to be business-wise. But in some respects, is that a good shame? Is that shame motivating me a little bit to say, come on, John, let's go? Could be a driving factor. Daniel says, I didn't really find myself or have the mental strength or confidence to build a business until I was in my late 40s. So it's never too late to make a start.
Yeah. And I think, again, what sort of Dan's saying is something that I was talking about earlier, is the work required to have the ability to forgive yourself, and not even forgive yourself. I think that's kind of banded around a little bit too much, that sort of self-forgiveness, because what is there to forgive?
Yeah.
Fundamentally what happened was not your fault. So there's no self-forgiveness required, but it's kind of packaged in that way. It's that, self-forgiveness. But
sure,
it's there now, not carrying the burden of that, or the punishment, the self-flagellation that you have as a result of what happened to you in childhood.
Yeah.
And to be able to move forward and to look at those areas that you're really not happy with. And it's like, well, how do I change that? I really don't like this outcome. We have these arguments, or we go out for a night out and we always come back having had and it's a crap evening, blah, blah, blah. It'd be quite nice not to do that. So what do I need to do to change that? Or to have better relationships with my kids, or, friendship group, whatever. It's all to do with that sort of process. But I completely agree, to let it go is the healing.
Yeah, it's the healing. Dan says, share it and move on. I've been very vocal about depression and failures. Talking about things is very powerful. Acknowledge, position, accept, share, and look forward. I like that, Dan. That's very powerful. I would also say, Dan, that some people there is context to that, because some people are in environments where they're surrounded by people, again, they could take personal responsibility for this, who cannot handle truth. And I know people in family situations where they feel obligations to these people, but they can't tell how they feel because the other person cannot handle it. And I know people in certain situations are in you know, they tell somebody something that happened and they are in the deepest level of denial, and it is difficult. And I can understand. Then you think, man, was it even worth telling this person?
Yeah.
Should
But
I
then who
share
are
it?
you? But then what are you, who's it for? Fundamentally, is it for you or is it for them? That's the question. Are you telling them for their sake, or are you telling them for your sake?
Yeah. Or do you just need to move away from that, even though if it's hard, it might be your mother, it might be your father. Do you need to, move away from that relationship that they can't handle the truth?
Yeah.
Is
I
the
mean,
reality that you need to step away?
my own personal experience, and this is again literally anecdotal to me, is that I felt not saying was worse than saying. It was doing more damage to me, and that was the thing that I needed to take care of, was myself.
Mm.
And I felt that all the time I wasn't saying it, it was an insidious force that was just eating away at me underneath, that was feeding into that incongruity between the person that I wanted to be and the person I was feeling inside. So, and it's hard, man. It's really, it ain't easy, but
It's difficult, isn't it? It's so difficult
because,
in the capitalist world as well. Imagine you go into a job interview and you was truly telling the truth.
yeah,
If you went into a job interview, say, "Oh, okay, John, why do you want to be here?" And you're just like, because I
I
have to
don't want
pay
to
my
be here.
bills.
I just
I
want to
don't
pay my
really want to
mortgage.
be here. I literally just want to get paid.
Yeah,
I need
yeah,
to come in, do a job and get paid. I've got bills to pay. I've got
yeah,
responsibilities. This is not really what I dreamed of doing as a kid, but I'm here and I'll show up and I'll do a good job.
yeah. And I'll make the
Yeah.
platitudes, and
And I
I'll
was maybe
nod when I need
depressed
to
like a
nod.
couple of years ago and I couldn't get out of bed because, something happened as a kid. In the capitalist world, when it's there's an exchange thing and there's a competition and there's winning, it's complicated, James, isn't it?
And we can sit here all day long and go, oh yeah, it's like utopia, it's unicorns, and it's fluffy clouds.
And you
But
can
that's the reality,
understand,
isn't it?
how many people do we know who can read all the books? They have the word patter, and in reality, they're not embracing what they're saying. They might say and understand the logic of something, but to
But
actually
that's all of us,
embody it,
mate. That's all of us to a greater or lesser extent. I think none of us are immune
no.
from those kind of behaviors. It's like we can pontificate and say that this, that, and the rest of it, and but we're trying to figure it out, aren't we?
You're trying to. Who knows what the hell this life is about? You're literally trying your best, aren't you, to just try and
Who's to say?
figure
Who's to
things
say?
out.
Because, I mean, this is the thing that fascinates me, is like, the voices that we listen to, the people that we follow, and their opinions are formed from their own lived experience, which can be very, very different to ours. And yet they're suddenly, put up on a pedestal of being the guru, the be all and the end all, and the solution. We're all looking for somebody just to go, do this, 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 and this, and everything will turn out fine. Everything will be resolved. And we're just holding on to that information, just that little nugget that will bring us salvation. And it doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. There's going to be things that you can cherry pick, and the language that we use, will come from the whole conversation that we've had will have drawn anecdotally from other podcasts that we listened to, or conversations that we'd had, or something we saw on TV. And if it resonates, then you can kind of, pull that one out of the ether and use that to, back up a theory, or, to put a point across. Is any of the language we're using our own anymore? Or are we just symptomatic of what's going on in the ether? Really, these are our own thoughts, or is it just an amalgamation of everything that we consume? So that comes down to sort of again, and personal agency and what it is that you're trying to portray. But I think all we can do, generally speaking, is to focus on ourselves and look at our own behaviors, and just figure out what the outcomes we would like. And if the outcomes aren't what we want, then what do we need to do to get the outcome that we do want? And that's personal responsibility. But knowing that fundamentally is the shame that we have inherited from the trauma, the childhood, from our parents' trauma, their childhoods, from their grandparents, and to acknowledge that and to think, well, actually, is that serving me? Is it not serving me? What can I do about it?
I like that, James. I like that. Daniel says, I think that's something that employers would be happy to hear. We all want to be by the pool or on the beach, but we have to graft to get there. If someone will commit to turning up to a job, giving their best and admitting that it's not where they really want to be, great. How refreshing. Yeah, I'd be interested to know. Yeah, I reckon maybe a small business, certain personality types might actually admire that honesty, like radical honesty. I think I would. I think if I was Daniel and somebody actually said that to me and I was hiring somebody, I would think, I like that, to be honest.
Yeah, because it's them being honest. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like there's no bullshit.
Yeah. But I think with corporates, James, you have that thing is, I was speaking to somebody the other day about it. They don't want to be the one to hire the mistake. So it's basically, let's play it safe here.
Yeah.
It's just easier to hire the bigger company who's got the person who says they love the job than hiring somebody who says, oh, I'm not sure about this, I'm a bit depressed. Because even though they like that person, if something goes wrong, they're going to have to go back and say, oh, why'd you hire them? They already said they don't want to be here. And then you get in trouble. So I think the bigger the company, I guess it's harder for that to become a realization. But small companies, I do like the honesty. Like it.
Radical honesty. Let's champion radical honesty.
Again, like we said before, all of this is so contextual. What works for me might not work for you. I think being honest is a great way forward, but obviously judging who you can be honest with is also takes a lot of context, doesn't it? Daniel says, work to live,
not live to work.
Not live to work, right? Daniel brings up so many questions, doesn't he? That's even a tricky one. That's another. That could be a whole hour on that statement, I think. But thanks, guys. Thank you for tuning in, Daniel. Excellent questions.
Watching
we had Martin watching the budget.
Dan was late to the party. He was watching the budget.
I've stayed clear of that.
So grown up.
Biliana, thank you very much. If you've been affected by any of these topics, this sounds like a commercial, isn't it? What was it? If you've been affected by any of these topics, please, we should have a number, really.
Yeah, don't call us.
Call me. We offset thing. You're very cautious about this, aren't you? You're very straight-laced. I'm more, I don't know, like he said, maybe I am delusional. I think I can be more.
Mate. That's what you are.
I think I can be more helpful than like a trained psychologist sometimes. That's my.
So what were we saying about ego? Should we just redefine ego there?
Yeah.
A second and just go. Sigmund Freud? Really?
Who? Read a book?
Who even is Sigmund?
Yeah.
You want the Hastings effect?
Maybe that's my rebellion in me. It was a rebel against the systems. You're more
single-handedly just completely destroyed the last hour of this conversation, mate. Well done.
Yeah. Take James's advice. Go extreme pro.
Don't call John. No.
Yeah.
Contact a professional. Anyway,
James, great to catch up. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you again soon. Share your shame. If you want to DM us, please do. Sometimes it can be a door open, and some people are struggling to the max, James, aren't they? They are really on the edge of something, and they feel they can't share something that's going on in their life. I mean, and a conversation like this could change somebody's life, couldn't it? Just to reach out, tell the truth. If something's happened to you, it's okay. You know, there is ways forwards, and we all feel shame about something. So yeah, reach out, guys.
Just to finish that off again, for me personally, to have reached the point that I'm at in my life, I'm incredibly grateful to have done it. I mean, albeit at the age that I am, it took a long time.
Yeah.
But to have been on my deathbed and still carrying around all of that from childhood, that would be my regret. Yeah. So I am eternally grateful to be in a position now where relationships are where they are and I'm where I am, even at this relatively late stage. So
and I accept your thanks for me helping you change your life, James. I fully accept that, and it's no problem at all. It's just what I do.
It's like it's another day for you, mate, isn't it?
It's another day. It's another day, James. But you'll be all right. You'll be all right. You're fine.
People, such a burden, mate, but you carry it so well.
I do. The weight of the world.
The weight of the world. You're like
take care, guys. Share your shame. And we'll speak to you soon.
Much love, everybody.
James. Take care. Bye.
Bye.